the Wooden Boat Show, the Indigo Choral Concert, Winyah Bay, and the Harbor Walk. Georgetown was one of the first attempted settlements in North America and was established as a trading outpost and port in 1729, making it the third oldest city in the state. Winyah Bay and the 5 rivers that feed into it were the main attraction of this location. The access to water and easy travel for merchants on the waterways made growing rice a lucrative business in the 1800s. Georgetown County became one of the wealthiest counties in the country in the 1840s because of the high export of rice, which was termed Carolina Gold, and cotton and lumber production. This lasted until the Civil War, and many hurricanes impacted the area, causing the once thriving industry to diminish by the turn of the century.
Georgetown's luck turned around when the Atlantic Coast Lumber Company established themselves here in 1903. It was the largest lumber producing plant on the East Coast by 1914. After the Depression hit, the lumber company declared bankruptcy in 1932. But due to the already established infrastructure, logging companies, and timber management areas, International Paper Company built the paper mill in 1936, which was known to be one of the largest paper mills in the world during this time. International Paper has supplied many jobs throughout the years to the surrounding area, but has also supplied a silent killer, cancer.
The river we're on today is called the Sanford River, and as you can see behind me, the International Paper Complex is looking over Sanford River entrance into Winyah Bay. During the paper bleaching process, a byproduct called dioxins are created. Dioxins are highly toxic compounds that cause reproductive issues, developmental problems, damage to a person's immune system, hormonal interference, and cancer. Dioxins have carcinogenic properties due to the placement of chlorine groups on their hydrocarbon rings and its chemical structure. These chlorine groups react with different receptors and cause various pathways to be induced or restricted in the body, leading to damage within cells and its DNA. Dioxins are able to pollute the surrounding environment and have a long half-life, which means they take a long time to break down and are able to contaminate the area for decades after its production. The dioxins are able to travel through the local watersheds and contaminate the aquatic wildlife, such as the fish and plants. Other animals that prey on these plants and fish are then contaminated with the dioxins after ingestion, making dioxin pollution an issue at every level of the food chain. Previous research completed in 1988 by the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA, showed dioxin levels in Sanford River to be approximately 600 parts per quadrillion. The standard limit set by DHEC in 1991 for dioxin pollutants is 1.2 parts per quadrillion, which shows why the Georgetown Paper Mill was known to have the highest dioxin output in the country and one of the highest dioxin outputs in the world. This level of dioxins has greatly impacted the environment for many decades since the opening of the paper mill in 1936.
The locals here in Georgetown, South Carolina, enjoying a leisure day out on the water, yet they don't know what's actually inside.
Previous research was completed over 30 years ago, so it's time to look at this issue again. Current research has been completed here at Francis Marion University using water samples collected from Sanford River. The water samples were filtered to remove any metals or silt from the water, while it's still being able to contain all the chemical pollutants that are in the water. The water was mixed with cell media, which is a nutrient-rich liquid designed to support cell life in a laboratory setting. Human neuroblast cells were placed in the water media mix inside of a Boyden chamber assay and cell plates, which are experiments to test cellular migration and spontaneous motility of the neuroblast. Analysis of these tests showed increased migration and spontaneous motility of the cells that were placed in the Sanford River samples. Quantitative polymerase chain reaction, also known as qPCR, is an experiment to monitor the level of replication of a target DNA molecule in a cell, which was completed to take a deeper look at the gene expression within these cells. The gene ID2 was monitored with qPCR and overall expression in the experimental cells. The ID2 gene, or inhibitor of DNA binding 2, is a protein-coding gene that plays a role in a number of biological processes, including cellular differentiation and tumorigenesis. The gene ID2 was monitored with qPCR and was overexpressed in the experimental cells by a rate of 2.75. This shows increased tumorigenesis, meaning the cells are presenting cancerous properties due to being placed in the water that surrounds the paper mill. To try and figure out what exactly is causing this, optical spectroscopy was conducted, which is an experiment that analyzes the wavelengths of refracted light from the solution samples placed into a machine. Optical spectroscopy showed wavelength similarities in the collected samples from Sanpet River to that of dioxins.
Here is an example of the control group migration, and here is an example of the experimental migration. And this chart represents the difference between the two in the control and experimental groups. Here is a graph representing the fold change in the ID2 gene. And here is an example of a tumor produced in the neural cell plates.
As you can see behind me, the impact from the various infrastructure complexes in Georgetown has caused detrimental impacts on the local environments. If you look throughout these marshes behind me, many of the cypress trees have actually died. A lot of these trees have been here since the early 1900s, but after the production of many dioxins within the environment, the trees have died. In the future, various water cleanups need to be conducted to remove these harsh toxins from the local waters of Georgetown, South Carolina. The Environmental Protection Agency, along with DHEC and other organizations, need to all combine efforts in taking drastic measures against the International Paper Company. With the closing of the paper mill coming soon, the environment will hopefully begin to heal itself from the harsh pollutants that have been released in the waters during the past century that the paper mill has been open. Further studies also need to be completed in order to monitor the greater impacts that have been caused on the local environment due to the pollutants released from the various industrial complexes in this local area. Further studies need to be completed in order to monitor the greater impacts that the industries in this local area have had on the environment. Georgetown's beautiful ecosystem needs to be preserved in order for future generations to enjoy it the way that people have enjoyed it throughout Georgetown's time.